Hello, my name is Brant. Last name is Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. I'm on YouTube and Facebook. I seek the truth because I want the truth. I pursue what is true. I seek the light that's within me. We all have that light within us, that inner light, that innocence that is in us. So my talk today is who really rules this planet? We're told that certain people like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all these people, that well-known names, such and such, rule this planet. No, no, no. They're just what I call the middlemen. They're not the real ones. They're not the real ones that actually rule this entity, this planet. I don't even know what this place is in a lot of ways. I couldn't even tell you because there's so many lies that have been told to us in school, or so many lies that we've been told to by those in churches who really are just propagating falsehood. And they do it, a lot of people do it just because they get a paycheck. You see, they choose to look the other way, and they continue the sickness that beseeches man. They truly are ones who do not want to find the truth. They just simply want a job and a house and a few other things, and they're content with that. So, like, there's a guy named Fritz Spielermeyer, I think is how you pronounce his name. He wrote a book many years ago and talking about the major families here in the United States, such as the Rockefellers is one, the DuPonts was another name, the Vanderbilts, and others. And they're just what I would call the middlemen. They're the ones who profit a little bit here, but they're not the ones at the top. So how do we deal with this whole issue? How do we this whole planet itself, what is it? Is it a planet? There are people who believe this is a flat earth. Is it? Do you know that for sure? Are you just playing the other game simply as what we call the round earth and the flat earth? And so they're the two pillars. Either or. When there may be something else out there. How do we know? We don't know. The sad part simply is that, or maybe I should say the important part is to understand it simply is that we are part of this planet in somehow, some way, and we've been here before. The problem is simply is we just don't remember. Some of us may not want to remember, you see. Maybe the questions are. And so we believe in the lie. We believe in many lies. We believe that we are inferior when that's not true. We're told that we're inferior. Where did that come from? We're taught that we're inferior because we're not well off, or we are not good enough. Where do those thoughts come from? Is there something else going on this planet that we don't know about? Are there hints in our lives that somehow this is is it a training ground of some type? Is it some type of test that we're going through? Is that what's taking place? How can we trust even some of the authors that we think are truthful? Why don't we have the books that are all in the Vatican? Why don't we? What are you afraid of? Those that do actually rule this planet. What are you afraid of? What are you really afraid of? You know, why, if you truly were not afraid, because you have to be afraid, because if you had all these books in the Vatican and you've dumbed this down, you see, that we probably wouldn't even be able to read the books because they were probably written in languages that is hardly even spoken today. So why are they afraid? Do they like to rule over people? Is that their whole agenda? They just love to keep their foot on our heads. Is that what they do? And most people who are very naive have no idea what they're doing. They just follow commands and destroy other people's lives for the sake of just simply as I was commanded to do. I was commanded to do this. That's what I was told. I was told to do this. Yeah, it's not the planet itself is bad. It's actually there's much beauty on this planet. But why is there a struggle for life here on this planet? I mean, you see it everywhere around you. Not only on us, not only in the insect world, but in the animal world. There's a struggle for life. Why is it like that here? Did we have that before we came here? That is maybe our reincarnation, so to speak, was where we came from like this world? I don't think so. It seems to be completely foreign to what we were expecting. I remember someone sharing some information with me at a very, recently, but actually at a very young part of my life. Um, very disappointed with life that is actually at 5 years old. I don't know this, but to someone else that understood me more than I did, um, shared with me simply is that I was already frustrated with life at that early age of 5 years old. And two things I remember, the main two things I can remember in my life were the key pivotal deals was I remember seeing the funeral of John F. Kennedy. That that played on my mind. I remember that. I remember it triggered me, the death of him, and seeing the solemn coffin going by. Also remember simply as the hellfire preaching of a preacher that was saying that I was going to hell and actually was in fear and crying. And also remembering another episode that is I'm playing in the snow and actually going down what I suppose was what I would call a high area in a sled and basically getting my pants wet because at the bottom was a creek. Those are the only memories I have at that age. What happens to that? What causes that? Why do we just barely? And those were traumas in one way or the other. Those three things I've just shared with you was sort of what I call some type of trauma. One was dealing with the president dying and passing, knowing that something was wrong, and then also the dealing with the issue of being in a church that was preaching hellfire, brimstone type of deal that I was going to go to hell. Why would be a God even created that way? Do you ever ask yourself that? Why would there be a God who would actually take pleasure in sending someone to hell when they had no idea the game plan, didn't understand the realm that they're in? How can you even judge someone of that nature? Because you didn't get the rules. And the same thing with the issue of that the trust that we have, the Social Security deal, how we've been misled simply in that regard. That started in 1933. And most 99% of the people, if not more, don't even know what that's all about. Why are we deceived by others? Why are we so trusting of others? Why are we so trusting of authority, especially people in a position of authority? Why do we even obey these people? Is it because of our own innocence in some ways? Or the traumas that were introduced in our lives at an early age? If you got some answers here, you're welcome to share because I don't have the answers. I don't claim to. I'm just asking questions here. Why do we exist? What is our purpose here? What happens to us when we pass from this realm? How can we trust anything that's written down on a piece of paper, even a book? You can look behind me. I got plenty of books. Most of them don't deal with what I call the spiritual questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going to after I pass? Does anybody have these answers? As I've gotten older, especially after the passing of my parents, my dad and my mom, these questions become more pertinent. I wonder if my parents ponder these things. Both my parents were so-called born again Christians. They believed that simply as once they were saved from hell, damnation, saved from God's wrath. But why would there be a need for hell? Why would there be a need for God's wrath? And so, I'm just talking again, like I said. That where did these ideas come from? Are we the generation that basically finally sees some of these things and begins to question what's going on? And those who are younger than me, are they aware? Are they themselves much older, that is, older souls than we are? I being 61 years old. What about those who are in their 40s, 30s? Look around and see the traumas they've gone through. The trauma I went through was considered to me to be minute compared to what many are going through now, especially those in the 20s now, with there's very little hope, very little jobs. They don't even teach you what they taught me and what I taught myself. And so what? So what about our so-called spiritual leaders? And I'm not talking about the ones who are in the cloth and are so-called Christians or whatever. I'm talking about those who um, have profound, supposedly, questions and answers, supposedly, like Rudolf Steiner, or like Carl Jung. Were they expressing truth themselves? I know that Rudolf Steiner was a part of what we call a metaphysic society groups. He was part of that, and he broke away from that. But was he really was he not? Did he have the privilege of actually knowing these things himself, or was he espousing what he had been taught himself, not knowing that he might be speaking in error? And what about Carl Jung? We know this simply is he was during the same year, he was in the same time period uh, that the other psychologists were well known. They drawn a blank all of a sudden in my head, which were quite the opposite of what he was about. What are we actually seeking for here? What are we looking for? Are we looking for our true selves? I think a realization simply is that we have to come to is that we're all lost. Is that we're all lost. We don't know the truth. Um, we pretend to, don't we? Don't we do that? Don't we pretend that? I think also simply is that the younger folks that are younger have yet to even, well, maybe some have asked these questions, deeper questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? I think it only when you get older in life that you realize simply is you're not going to be here for a long time. That it kind of basically is like gets your attention. What about these people that we put on pedestals? Why do we put them on pedestals? Is it just because they're speak from authority as though they know something? And a lot of times this seems to be like gobbledygook, meaning simply is it doesn't make sense in our own finite minds. I'm not saying they have the truth or they don't have the truth. But why do we put these people on a pedestal? Why do we believe in these people as though they have truth? Maybe they don't have truth themselves. Maybe they themselves are just as lost as we are. Why is the idea that simply meditation has become a big deal here in the last 20, 25 years? Why is that phenomenon taking place now? Is there a reason for that? Or is this another trick? And what do I mean by trick? Maybe it's another way of quote unquote deceiving you. Again, I'm asking questions. I'm not offering any answers. Part of the idea to me somehow is that I grow in, or I think I grow in spurts, so to speak, in this area, trying to find spiritual knowledge. And it's like looking in a big haystack and trying to find a penny or a nickel. And sometimes you really actually think you found something, you know, that might be true. And then later on, you find out simply they wasn't who they said they were. I ask myself these questions about Alan Watts. I wonder who he is, or I should say Alan Watt. Who is he? Why is he enormously popular these days? He claims he's found certain things that is from the East. Claims to be involved with the Zen movement, but is that true? Or was he just a clever at what he shared? Maybe he never knew the whole truth. Maybe he just knew part of it. But we think sometimes that it's the whole truth. What about Goethe? Most of you have never heard of Goethe. What was he all about? What was his life like? You need to ponder these guys. Most of these people are not what you call popular, which should be a clue. Maybe they're honest, maybe they're not. Why do people flock to gurus? Why do we always flock to someone that, again, we think, or we've been told they're spiritual? What about Eckhart Tolle? What's he all about? Who is he? Where did he come from? What does he espouse? Why does he charge people money to hear him? Because that's a red flag to me, folks. If the truth is true, why do you charge? If there's such a person as Jesus, or that name, Jesus being a Greek word, who was this particular person? Was he given a name from a perspective from a long, long time ago? You do know that Jesus, if he's truly who he is quite the opposite of what the churches teach today. Jesus is a radical, far more radical than you really realize. He was, if he was truly who he is. Or is he a made-up story? Why did he not charge anything? If he had truth? See, my thinking simply is that character in the pudding makes it far more edible than one who does not have character or integrity. Is Jesus a story of what man can be? What about the whole thing that simply is that we talk about with Jesus, that he suffered and was on the middle cross, the middle pillar, so to speak, of the two other pillars? Why does he talk about the narrow path or the narrow way? Why does he use parables to explain something deeper? Because I'm afraid that in some ways simply is that he was talking about something deeper, but he knew that simply is that he would only be able to share it in a parable because most people couldn't handle the truth, or most people would not know the truth when it was told to them. Kind of scary, isn't it? That most of us are not even aware of truth. Why do we come back here so many times? Have we been here 1,000 times? 100 times? Have we learned our lesson? Why is there such a thing as duality here? Well, part of it, I think, is duality. Is simply is that there is appreciation of what is good. If always you had good things to happen in your life, you would appreciate the goodness. So you have what I call the bitterness of life to appreciate the good times you have. We do live in a duality here on this planet. And also, our families have enormous impact upon our lives. Are we willing to break the ship, cross the plank, and say goodbye to that with families? Because families are an enormous, enormous tug on you in a way that you don't know. Because in a lot of ways, they're your security. And many people have a hard time walking away from that. I'm not saying the parents are bad, but some of their beliefs, sometimes you have to wonder where they get their beliefs at. It's the same question with my parents. You know, why is why should I trust my parents? Well, my parents are great parents. I don't know. Um, I never really what I would call rejected them. I saw them as they tried to do their best they could, not knowing understanding. Although I see for myself it's a different situation. I feel like I know a little bit more than my parents know, and so there's a bigger responsibility, a much bigger responsibility. Although I don't know the truth myself either, but it's a heavier responsibility. Again, you can look at those books back there, and part of it simply is I have enormous interest in why I'm here, have enormous interest in seeking knowledge or trying to find that nickel or penny in that haystack. And a lot of that's where I pursued it is in books, trying to get a glimpse of what truth is all about. If you're not here and don't understand the idea of truth, is simply is you're trying to find out who you are and what you are and why you're here and what is my purpose here. The parables give illustrations of something to deal with what we call lost. You remember the parable of the woman who lost a coin? That she was pursuing of that. What about the story of the prodigal son? What is that all about? And I don't want the standard theological answers because there's nothing there. It's dry. There's no truth in that. It's just an answer. Okay, I've spent about 29 minutes here, so I think I need to conclude. Wish each one a good night. I appreciate you listening, and you have a good night. You take care.